We're holding by a Mishnah on the bottom of Tzadik Aleph, 91. About a month left this Zavachim. Okay. Thank Hashem that they're able to learn Torah every day. It's chassid by learning, we should have to be some English. So, much lamer for those that are interested. Okay. Start the Mishnah like this. Amar Reb Shimon. Shimon, which is Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. He says, Imreisa Shemen Shumischalek Ba'azara. If you notice, if you're in the Beis Hamikdash and you notice that there's oil that's being distributed amongst the Kohanim in the Azara, Ein Tzarech L'Shamau, you don't have to ask, where's the shemen from? Where's this oil from? What's it? What type of sacrifice is it? You should know already what it is. Ella, the only thing that it could be is Maisar Mutar Maisar Rikike Minchas Yisrael. It's the remnants of the mincha that was brought as rikikim, which is wafers, crackers. And the way that mincha was brought was that they made the dough, flour, like matzah, made like matzah. But then they would smear the oil on top of it afterwards. Sometimes it was the flour mixed with oil. That was the chalis. Chalis matzah is belulis b'shemen. Rikike matzah is meshuchim b'shemen. The wafers, these type of rikikim, which are the crackers, rikikim crackers, are smeared with oil. They're smeared with oil in a way in the form of a Greek letter T, maybe like an X or something. Whatever the case is, there's a lot of remaining oil afterwards. What is that? What is done with that remaining oil? Well, it's distributed amongst the kohanim. What would they do with it? They would eat it with their sourdough bread, dip it in whatever they could do with it. Other things like shemen shem mitzera. There's another the oil of the mitzera, which was also placed on his thumb and on his big toe. What was the remnant of that oil? It was given to the kohanim. They could do with it with whatever they need. There's also, this oil was also sprinkled 7 times. It was put on his ear and this, but the remnant was given to. Okay, so Reb Shimon tells us, you know where that oil's from, and that's what it is. Let's see oil that's being poured onto the fire. What oil is that? You don't have to ask which one it is. Ella, you should know, rather, it's Maisar Rikike Minchas Kayanim. This is the oil that's left over from a mincha that the kohanim brought. Now, when a kohen brings an offering, it's entirely burnt. It says kolel tia. It should be entirely burnt. So now, what for a Yisrael would have been distributed for them to eat is now entirely burnt. So it is, yes, it's the remnant of a mincha. The remnant of a mincha, but because they're kohanim, it has to be burnt. That's why it's being poured on the mizbeach. Minchas kohen Mashiach. Or it could be the chavitin. Minchas Kohen Mashiach means the Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol's carbon. Because that was also burnt entirely on the fire. The main point that we're doing over here is she'ein misnadrim shemen. This opinion holds that you can never just donate oil. You see oil in the Beis Hamikdash. He holds this opinion holds that there's no such thing as donating oil. You can donate an animal, you can donate a carbon mincha, which comes with oil. You can donate an animal that comes with oil, but you can't just donate oil. So you know which mincha it is attributed to. Reb Tarfon, he argues on this. Oimer, he says misnadrin shemen, you're allowed to donate oil. Now we're totally thrown off. You see oil in the Beis Hamikdash in the Azara. You have no clue what it is, because it could be that it was just a regular donation. We don't know what's going on. Okay. Regarding the Minchas Kayanim, there was a lot of oil. For Shleisha Lugim for Isarin. And it was baked. So it was baked first before the oil was applied to it. So there was going to be a lot of remnant remaining oil. What would you do with that? That would have to be burnt because every mincha b'kayin is burnt. Okay. Mm-hmm. Amar Shmuel. Statement from Shmuel. Yeah. First generation. What did they say? What do they do with Rabbi Tarfon? Allah follows Rabbi Tarfon that a person can donate oil. Okay. Shmuel says, Rabbi Tarfon, according to Rabbi Tarfon's opinion is that a person can go to the Beis Hamikdash and just donate oil. Misnadiv shemen. What do you do with someone that does donate oil? What do you do with it? It says kaintai. The kain takes the scoop of the oil. Yeah, he gets a scoop of oil. Maybe they let it get cold. It would be easier to make a scoop because it congeals easier. But it doesn't say that. B'shiar v'nechalim. Otherwise, it would be dripping everywhere. It has to be filled without any air space in between. No, turns more into like a salad. Anyway, and the rest is eaten. That's how you have this oil hanging around in the azara, because you already took the scoop, and then you have the remnant. My timer. What's the reason for this? That Shmuel says that according to Tarfon, this is what you have to do. The Zamar Kra, the pasuk says karban mincha. It says if a soul will bring a karban mincha, nefesh kisak karban mincha. So the word karban is extra. It could have said nefesh kisak mincha. So it says malamed is coming to teach us shemisnadvin shemen that you can bring oil. That extra word karban is coming to include the oil donation. The mincha, and then we continue. We say it's going to be just like a mincha. Yeah, because we learn it from karban mincha. So now we do the comparison fully. Say ma mincha kaimta shirei nachalin avshemen kaimta shirei nachalin. You learned it from the karban mincha. So let's continue with this limud. Just like the karban mincha, you take a scoop and you burn it on the fire, and then the rest of the karban mincha is eaten by the kayanim. So to the oil, you take a scoop, you burn it on the fire, and the rest is just eaten by the kayanim. Amar Rab Zera afanan nami tanin. Rab Zera says we also learned this in our Mishnah. Now tanina means our Mishnah. That's what Shmuel was medayik. What Shmuel is saying, according to Reb Tarfon, that we can donate oil the way it's being done. Reb Zera comes along and says that I can see that in our Mishnah as well. Amar Reb Shimon says, if you see oil that's being distributed in Azara, this is the Mishnah, right? Reb Shimon says this. You don't have to ask what it is. You don't have to ask what it is, because we know what it is. It's the Meiser Kike Minchas Yisrael, like Shemen Shal Mitzayra. Well, what's Reb Shimon's chiddush? What could I have thought? It goes on, Shein Misnadrin, because you have to add in the word oil. Shein Misnadrin Shemen, because you don't donate oil. If you would donate the oil, then what would you do with it? You would probably offer a kaimetz, and then the rest would be eaten. Michlal, the mandav misnadvin, one that says that you do donate oil, mischalek, gets distributed to the kain gets eaten. Amalei Abaya. Abaya says to Reb Zera, he says, Abaya was a student of Rabba. Rabba and Reb Zera are friends, if you remember, from Purim. Abaya is a student. Abaya says, hey, Maseifa, let's go a little further in that Mishnah and see if you're actually correct. The Mishnah says, if you see oil that's being poured on the fire, you don't have to ask what it is, because we know what it is. It's only one option. Two options. It's the remnant of a kayan's mincha, which is getting burnt, or the mincha or the kayan Mashiach. Shein misnadvin shemen, because you can't donate oil plain. Oh, and if you would donate oil plain, where would the oil be? It would be getting burnt, and that's why he's telling you don't confuse it. So 1 second. Michlal, this implies the Laman Damar Misnadev, the one that says that you do donate oil, which is Reb Tarfon, we know. Kulan Leishan, then it means it does get burned. So now we have a contradiction between what we understood from the Reisha and what we understood from the Seifa. According to the Reisha, it appears that the oil that would be donated, according to Reb Tarfon, would be eaten, which would follow Reb Shimon. I'm sorry, not follow Reb Shimon. It would follow Shmuel. Shmuel says that according to Reb Tarfon, that you can donate oil. What do you do with that donation? You eat it, the Kainim eat it. According to Abaya says that when you donate oil, it gets burnt. Every sacrifice, you would say, it's a waste. So, but this person wants to bring a sacrifice of oil. Yeah. And donate whatever he wants. He can donate now he can donate to the temple fund, but he didn't donate to the temple fund. If you want to donate to the temple fund, go ahead. But if you want to donate to the Mizbeach, then it's going to get burnt. Right? So the Gemara says, La Abaya Kasharesha. According to Abaya, we have a question on the Resha. Why does it say that because you can't donate oil? But the Resha says that if you see it's being eaten. What do you mean? If you donate the oil, it doesn't get eaten anyway. The Reb Zera kasha seifa. According to Reb Zera, we have a kasha on the seifa because the seifa says, the end of the Mishnah says that the reason why you don't assume anything else other than a mincha, the remnant of the mincha of a kayan, is because you can't donate oil. What do you mean? According to Reb Zera, it doesn't get burnt anyway if you would donate it. No, the truth is there's a slight problem here. Our Mishnah didn't actually say in the Reisha, we didn't actually use the words She'ein Misnadvim Shemen. This was added by Reb Zera. Let's see what the commentary says on that. So I would have thought that maybe Afanan Nami Tanina means maybe it's a brisa that has the words. But Tanina is always a Mishnah. Let's see what they say. So what they say is over here, they say, Einat tzarech l'shel mahu. In other words, the words of the Seifa that say She'ein Misnadvin Shemen is being applied back to the Reisha. It's implied. In other words, She'ein Misnadvin Shemen is going on both. Whether you see it's being burnt or whether you see it's being eaten, like we see in the Reisha, you don't assume that it's anything else. She'ein Misnadvin Shemen. That's the way Reb Zera is reading it. Okay. According to Reb Zera, that says that if someone donates oil, it's going to be eaten, right? Just the kaimitz is taken, the rest is eaten. Reisha b'shirayim. Talking about in the Reisha, where you see it's being eaten. We're talking about the remnants of the mincha because the kaimitz was already brought. Seifa b'kaimitz, and you can answer. You see oil that's being burnt on the altar. So don't think that it's anything else. It has to be a carbon of a mincha. It has to be a mincha of a kayan, because that's why it's being burned. But because we we do not donate oil, right? Plain oil. So and if you did donate plain oil, what would it be? You would be eating it. It says, yeah, but there's one part of it that you have to offer. And that one part that you have to offer onto the fire would be the kaimetz. So when it says, if you see it's being burnt on the altar, don't assume that it's anything else, because if you could have thought that it could be the oil donation, because in the oil donation you do have one part of it that's being burnt. So according to Reb Zera, we can resolve because there's a part that's burnt and the part that's eaten. Ella Abaya kasha, but according to Abaya, what are we going to do? Abaya says. That there's no such thing as a carbon that's being eaten, that the oil is being eaten. because it's always burnt. So what's he gonna do with the Reisha? The Gemara answers, Tana Reisha at the Seifa. Really, the main part of the mission is the Seifa. You don't have to be concerned about the oil, that it's coming from some other place, because there's no such thing as donating oil. Why? Because if you would donate oil, then it would be burnt. And here also, in the Resha, you see it says you don't have to be concerned. Don't think that it's from another place when you see them eating oil, because you can't donate oil. It says, but 1 second, it wouldn't be eaten anyway. It says, yeah, that we just said that you don't have to be concerned. You don't have to ask what it is, because that was the same expression that we used in the Seifa. You're right, in the Resha, we wouldn't have assumed that it would be donating oil, because the donated oil is not eaten. But we just said it to keep the Mishnah symmetrical. Whether you see it's being eaten or whether you see it's being burnt, you don't have to assume that it's coming from somewhere else. Even though, if it's being eaten, of course it's not coming from somewhere else. Because if it would come from somewhere else, you wouldn't be eating it. Yeah, yeah. A person can bring wood to the Mizbeach, you can donate wood, salt, you can donate oil. So, Bishleim Seifa Tanim Mishum Reisha. The Gemara is assuming here, this is like a grammar Gemara. It says, I can understand when you want to make it symmetrical. So you started off saying something that it was necessary to say. So you'll conclude with something that will rhyme, something that will match, something like that. However, Ela Reisha Mishum Seifa Mitani, but do you write things like that? But you're going to write in the Seifa at the end. You already started in the Reisha, even though it's not necessary. The Gemara says, yeah, don't worry about it. Amri b'marava tan Reisha Mishum Seifa. In Eretz Yisrael, they say that's how it could be written. It could be written that you started off with something because of what you want to say at the end. They knew what they wanted to say at the end, so they started the Reisha like that. Tashema. Come and listen. We learned in a brisa that someone can donate wine. It says, Yayin Kediv Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva holds that a person can donate wine on his own. And what do you do with it? Lisfalim. You pour it into the tubes that were on the side of the Mizbeach. Darfin? No, we had them. Masech the Sukkah talks about where the wine was poured and where the water was poured. There were these like basins that had holes in them, and it would go down into the Mizbeach, along the side of the Mizbeach or into the Mizbeach, and then there was a chamber underneath that you could open up that had all the dried wine in there, according to one opinion. Okay, so we were learning before about donating plain oil. Now we're learning from Rabbi Kiva about donating plain wine. Donate wine to the Mizbeach. What do you do with the wine? You pour it down it doesn't get distributed amongst the Kayanim for tasting, wine tasting. Didn't have cheese there anyway. So, actually, the Kayanim had cheese because the Zroya L'chayayim Bekeva, the parts of the animal from a regular mundane animal was given to the Kayanim. Certain parts of the animal, the jaw, the right arm, and the inner part of the stomach, which that was the part that was used for rennet, and that was you could make cheese from that. So it could be if the Kainim always got the keva, that would mean the Kainim where it had all the whole entire cheese market would be Kainim. As every mundane animal, the keva went to the Kainim. It's from every animal. Okay, in the Hanukkah spirit. Okay, so yayin, according to Rabbi Akiva, is brought on its own, and it's poured down the sfalim, which are those two shemen, oil. Reb Tarfon, according to Reb Tarfon, that says that a person can donate oil. Yeah, now we have the two opinions here. Leishim is put on the fire. Well, what do you say? It's a raya to abaya. It's a Kashan Shmuel. My love. Is it not midiyayin kulus svalim? The way we just did this comparison between wine and oil, that according to Rabbi Kiva, it's poured down the tube, and the oil is put on the fire. It's probably entirely shem kulus svalim, right? It's a comparison. Each one is entirely poured. So the Gemara says, midi area. Is it? Do you have to grab it like that? Kedisa. The wine was poured entirely, and the oil, a scoop was put on the fire. According to Shmuel, the rest was eaten. Rav Papa Ketanoi. Rav Papa says that if we look, we can actually find that there's a machlekes tanoim regarding what Shmuel told us, that part of the oil is put on the fire, the rest is eaten. It says like this. It says, if someone accepts on himself to donate oil, shemen, it says oil, le'yivches milug. You should not give any less than one lug. A lug of oil is the size of 6 eggs of oil. If every egg is 2 ounces, it's be 12 ounces. Small jug of oil. Yeah. Costs you $15 in the store, but it's a small jug of oil. How big is a liter? 16 ounces? What's 32 ounces? Is that a gallon? 64? 64. And so how many liters are in a gallon? Are there 4? Oh, so it doesn't match perfectly?
I was trying to picture separating those bottles. I think 16 ounces.
Right.
And like half.
Right. Right. Uh-huh. So a liter is 34? 32. So, when you donate oil, you have to give a lug. Rabbi says, shleishas lugin. Can't give less than 3 lugin. Okay. What does it have to do with anything? How much oil you donate? What's the machlekes here between the Tanakama and Rabbi? So the sages said in front of Rav Papa the pshat. Dun minei minei or dun minei v'kabasrei. This is a phrase. It's Gemara uses this maybe once every Masechta. So it's not so common, but the Gemara uses this. The question is, when you derive one halacha from another halacha, do you have to take all the baggage that comes along from where you got it from, or can you just derive the one thing that you want, and then you'll apply it to the new scenario where it's in? You don't have to take everything that it comes along with. It's not a package deal. So dun minei minei means that it's a package deal. You learned it from there. You got to take the whole story. Dun minei vuki basrei means you learn from there, but you place it in its place where you only get the one detail that you needed, and everything else, I don't need that. I can take it. Yeah. Sometimes you go to the store, you want to buy something. Can you open up a package and take just the part that you want? Depends. Different stores with different rules. Dun minei minei, dun minei vuki basrei. I'm just taking this one. Okay, it could be now. That's the difference between the Rabbanan Savri, the Rabbanan hold that what's the source that a person can donate oil? We learn it from the carbon mincha, and we learn ma mincha misnadvim, afshemin misnadvim. Just like by the carbon mincha, it could be not an obligation; it's a donation sometimes, and it could be a donation. So therefore, the oil could also be donated. We learned it from the word carbon by the mincha, carbon mincha. Umine, and then if we're going to continue learning from the carbon mincha, because you have to take the full package. According to dun minei, minei. Ma mincha like shemen, just like the mincha, how much oil comes along with the carbon mincha? The smallest mincha would be a lug. These 6 eggs, afkan. So too by when someone donates oil, like shemen, he donates 1 lug. Ma mincha kaimtza v'sher nachalan. Now let's continue. What do you do with the mincha? You take a scoop and you eat the remnants. So af shemen. So let's continue with this with our comparison. The oil kaimtza, you take the scoop v'sher nachalan and you eat the rest. V'idach, what does Rabbi say? Rabbi says you need to bring 3 lugin. Where does he learn it from? He says, Ma mincha misnadim, Hashem misnadim. We learned from a carbon mincha that you can donate oil. We got from the word carbon, right? Vuki basrei, but then we go back to where we're holding. We're not talking about flour here. We're talking about a liquid. So, 1 second. We're not going to continue the comparison. All we got was one detail. And now we're going to say, Vuki basrei kinasachim, we're going to compare it to libations, because this is a liquid. Ma nesachim shleishas lugim, just like the smallest of the oil that's brought for a carbon is 3 lugim of oil. Af shemen shleish lugim. Also, the oil is just like by the wine. The sachem would be the wine. It's 3 lugim. So also to buy the oil, it's going to be 3 lugim. And now let's continue. Manasachem kulas svalim. Just like we're comparing it to the libations, what's poured, it goes down in the tube that's on by the mizbeach. Av shemen kula leishim. So the oil is not going to get poured down the tube, but it's going to be put on the mizbeach. It's going to go on the fire. What we just did over here was we came out with a machlekes between Shmuel and Abaya. If the oil is burnt or if the oil is eaten when it's donated, according to Reb Tarfon, said that that's going to be a machlekes between Rebbe and the Chachamim. Is the oil burnt? According to Rebbe, it is, and that would fit with Abaya. And if the oil is eaten, that would be the opinion of Rebbe of the Chachamim, the first opinion that said that you can donate a lug like it's compared to a carbon mincha. That would fit with Shmuel. It's eaten. Amalei Rav Papa Abaya now. Now Rav Papa is the one that's quoting this, and Rav Papa says to Abaya, he's a student of Abaya. He says, "Imi mincha ma'isi la Rebbe the kuli almadun minei minei." If Rebbe is learning from a carbon mincha, then everyone would hold that you have to learn from the carbon mincha. Rebbe is saying that we're learning from a carbon mincha, then we're comparing it to the nesachim. How do we get the comparison to nesachim, to the wine? Gemara says, Rav Papa says, Al Rebbe may ezrach gamerla. Rebbe is actually learning it not from the carbon mincha. He's not learning from the mincha at all. The whole premise is not the mincha. Rebbe is actually learning it from the nesachim itself. After the spies, and Hashem told them that they're not going to go into Eretz Yisrael, Hashem said, when you do go into Eretz Yisrael in 40 years, you're going to bring karbanos. You're going to have to bring the libations together with the karbanos. And the people got happy that at least they know that they're going to go into Eretz Yisrael. So he gave them an extra halacha about when they enter into Eretz Yisrael. So over there it says that kol ezrach yasa kacha, kol ezrach yasa kacha. Every settler in Eretz Yisrael that brings a sacrifice, they should do it like this. So we're going to learn from Ezrach. So we're going to do the comparison. Amalei Rav Huna Breder Rav Nasan Rav Papa. Rav Huna Breder Rav Nasan. Usually it's Rav Huna Breder Rav Yeshua. It was a friend of Rav Papa. Here it's Rav Huna Breder Rav Nasan. He says, Mi matzes amre tachi. Can you say that the source of Rebbe is from the pasuk Ezrach, which is in Parsha Shlach, which is about the libations Vatanya? The Brisa says Karban Mincha. It says in the pasuk Karban Mincha, Nefesh Kisak of Karban Mincha, right? Malamin Shemis Nadrin Shemen. We learn from there that you bring the oil, that a person can donate oil. The Kama Shleish Lugan, and the Brisa says that it's 3 Lugan. Man Shamat Le Damer Shleish Lugan. Who says that it's Shleish Lugan? It's Rebbe. The Kamai Slami Karban, and we bring it from the pasuk that says Karban. It's not from Ezrach. Amalei Rav Papa responds, Tanya. Look, if you have a Brisa, I'm stuck. I don't have another source. I guess you're right. Does this affect the way we were learning the Gemara until now that we have the Brisa? I think it's still going to be Dun Minei. Rebbe would say Dun Minei Vuki Basrei. That's how we would say it. Okay. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, Misnadiv Yayin. Yeah, someone that donates wine. Before we're talking about donating oil. And we mentioned Rabbi Akiva that says a person can donate wine. Misnadiv Yayin, maybe it was Alfil Gabi Ishim. Normally, the wine that comes together with the carbon is poured down the tube. It's called the svalim. When it poured it in the svalim, which is these bowls that had tubes attached, and then it would go down into the shisin. It was called shisin, or those chambers underneath the mizbeach. But over here, someone donates wine. It doesn't go in the tube. It goes into the bowls. It goes into the fire. My timer. What's the reason? Amakra, you quote Pasuk, B'yayin takrav l'nesech chatzihin yishirech nechech l'Hashem. It says a person can bring wine for pouring, a half a hin. I don't remember how big a hin is, but it's a fire, a sweet smell for Hashem. He said it's a fire. That means that it's going to go on the fire. Gemara says, "V'kamachabe." How can you put it on the fire? You're going to extinguish the fire. We have a pasuk in the Torah, 3 psukim, that say you're not allowed to extinguish the fire. My answer is kiboy b'miktas leishmei kiboy. It's not a problem if you put out part of the fire. You just can't put out the entire fire on the mizbeach. So you can pour the wine over some, the coals on the side, but you don't pour it over. You're not going to put out the entire fire. It's going to be fine. Says Aini, is that really so? You allowed to put out part of the fire? Rav Nachman, Rav Baravua. Rav Nachman says the name of his father-in-law, Rav Baravua. Someone takes the coal off the mizbeach and he puts it out, he's chayiv because it says leisichbe, right? You say in the kabbanis in the morning that you're not allowed to extinguish a fire. It says the leka alachas. That's because Rav Baravua and Rav Nachman were talking about where there only was one coal on the mizbeach, only one coal. Okay, so you put out the entire fire. Iba yasema, you can do another pshat. Kiboy the mitzvah shiny. You're right, you're not allowed to put out the fire, even a small part. But over here, because there's a mitzvah to pour the wine, so then the mitzvah overrides that negative prohibition of not to put it out. It sounds like an asay is deicha leisasay. That's what it sounds like. Tashema. Yeah. Okay. Tashema, the Gemara has a question. It says the Tanu Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov taught in a brisa. Klapish nasan Torah litraim. Since the Torah says that you take off from the ashes, it's called Truma Sadeshin. And every morning they take off from the ashes a shovelful. But the way they do it is they push the coals to this side, to that side, and they take from the coals that are totally consumed. Yachol Yechabe, maybe you should actually put out the coals before you take it off because you're supposed to take the ashes, right? V'yetchem, and then you take it. Amrit, it says Lo Yichbe, you're not allowed to put out the fire. Sounds like you're not allowed to put out any part of the fire. What do you have? The size of a hin?
The half it's big. It says roughly to 2.8. It's like double.
Okay. What is it in, not in liters, what is it in relationship to, your dictionary is not here. What is it in relationship to a lug? How many lug are in a hin? If you had that book that Dr. Stein comes with, that has the chart in that book. Maybe it's up there. If it's up there. So here we have the hin is one hin is 12 lug. How much did we say lug was? 6 eggs, right? Let's go to this lug. There's 6 eggs. So 12, what's 72. So the hin is a large amount, 72 eggs. So how did this come in? Where do we say the hin? Yeah, when you take the wine, it's 72 eggs. Imagine every egg is 2 ounces. 72, that's 144 ounces. So it's a lot of wine.
12 bottles.
No, how much is a bottle of wine? No, that's a small bottle. Big bottle of wine is 12 ounces. 4 cups, but every cup has got to be about 4 ounces, 5 ounces. Okay. It's a lot of it's a chatzi hin. Chatzi hin. That was a whole hin. That's 64. Chatzi hin is 64. Okay, we cut it down to half. Okay, so now we say it seems like you can't put out any fire. The Gemara says Shani Hasam Efshad Yosef Natar. Over there, and the question is, even though it's a mitzvah, you're doing Chumas Hadeshin. I thought if it's a mitzvah, you're allowed to put out the fire. Like we said, you pour the wine onto the fire. It says no, over there, because you can wait and it will go out. The wine, what are you supposed to do with the wine? If you have to burn it, you have to pour it onto a fire. Wait for what? Wait for it to go out, and you didn't pour it on the fire. Okay, so therefore the wine you're allowed to pour, but the coals that you're removing, you have to wait till it goes out. Tashma. Yayin, when it comes to the wine that's being brought on its own, Kediv Rabbi Akiva l'sfalim. According to the words of Rabbi Akiva, that holds that you're allowed to, and it gets poured into the bowls that have the tubes attached. Shemen, bring oil. Kediv Reb Tarfon, who Reb Tarfon holds that a person can donate oil. L'ishim, it's put on the fire. He said that this was a kasha on Shmuel, right? Kasha on Shmuel, because Shmuel says that it's eaten. V'itanya, we have another brayso that says Yayin Nesech l'sfalim, that the wine goes into the bowls. Maybe it goes on the fire. Amrit leyichaba. It says that you can't extinguish the fire. Okay, the second part is not akasha. But why is this akasha? Why is the second brayso akasha on Shmuel? What did Shmuel say? Divrei Tarfon. Shmuel said to sprinkle it on the fire. Oh, really? Oh! I'm thinking about Shmuel by the oil. Okay. That's okay. Shmuel by the wine says you put it on the fire. Problem is that the Brisa says. So now, 1 second. What's our question over here? Yayin, a question on wine. We have a kasha on Shmuel about the wine. That Shmuel says it goes on the fire. Over here it says it goes in the tube, on the bowls. We have another kasha Shmuel that says the wine that the yayin nesech, the wine that's being poured, goes into the bowls. Maybe it should go on the fire. It says lo yechabed, that you're not allowed to put it on the fire. So what is Shmuel saying? That when you bring wine, you put it on the fire. So Shmuel gives us two statements. Shmuel tells us that the oil is eaten and the wine is put on the fire. We had a kashas on both of them now. Okay. Kasha was with the putting the wine on the fire was that the fire was before, was that the wine would put it out. Okay, so the Gemara answers like Kasha. When it says that you're not allowed to put the wine on the fire, that's Reb Yehuda. Ha is Reb Shimon. To explain this like this, in Masechta Shabbos we had a big machlekes about a davar she'eino miskaven. Is if you don't have intention to do a malacha, is that considered the malacha? Shimon holds that if you don't have intention, you didn't do the malacha. Rabbi Yehuda holds that even without intention, it's still considered like the malacha. It's still a prohibition. So Rabbi Yehuda holds davar she'eino miskaven is chayiv. Rabbi Shimon holds davar she'eino miskaven is pater. So when we said that you're not allowed to put the wine on the fire, so that would follow the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that holds that putting out a fire is prohibited, even though that your intention isn't to put out the fire. But davar she'eino miskaven is chayiv according to him. And what does Shmuel hold? Shmuel holds like Reb Shimon that says davar she'eino miskaven is pater. So you're putting out the fire, but that wasn't your intention. So davar she'ein miskaven, it's not a problem. You didn't intend for that.
Not like direct. Like it happens, but it's like second.
Right.
It's not your main thing.
It wasn't right.
It's not like by mistake.
Yeah.
Like if someone.
That's something else. That's misasik. This is davar she'ein miskaven means that he didn't intend to do that malacha. He intended to do something else, and that malacha happens along the way. The only question here is that it may be a psik resha. Maybe even Reb Shimon that holds davar she'ein miskaven is pater, but if it's a psik resha, if it's definitely going to happen, it's automatic. It still holds that it's chaya. Anyway, okay. Without getting into the complications, the Gemara says, "Lememra." If the light's on in your fridge and you open the door, is your intention to turn on the light, right? So it's a davar she'ein miskaven. You should be allowed to open the fridge when the light goes on. You didn't intend, according to Reb Shimon. But the only problem is that every time you open the door, the light goes on. So it's a psik resha. You know what's going to happen. It happens every time. You want to say that maybe the bulb burnt out in between this time and last time. That's the odds are not like that. So you would assume that's a psik resha. So it should be aser. The question over here is,
But the light switch on the right, it instantly happen.
right.
But I'm saying it's not like.
Give me an example of a Shabbos thing that works.
I don't know, like other rabbis put it together.
I don't know if it has to work, if that works with a delay. Wheelchair works that it's automatically going. It's called it has some other contraption that it works. All you're doing is you're taking off what's stopping it from going, and you're not making it go. Really, it's going, and there's something blocking that from going, and then you remove that. There's another trick with that wheelchair. The delay, but it doesn't have to do with the delay. It has to do with that it's not a psik resha. Not every time you push the water thing is it going to turn on the thing. Every once in a while it will turn it on, but sometimes it won't until it hits a certain thing. Yeah, but I don't know if it's the delay. There may be a concept of the delay, but I think I'm not sure if you're getting exactly the delay issue. Most of it is it's not a psik resha. Okay, so. We're going to say that the brisa that says that you're not allowed to pour it on the fires is following the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, and Reb Shimon that says that you do. Shmuel that says that you pour it on the fires. The opinion of Reb Shimon that says that it's. Did I say psik? That it's Rabbi Yehuda holds that davar she'ein miskaven is chayv. Reb Shimon holds davar she'ein miskaven is pater. Says l'meimra. Does this to say the Shmuel Reb Shimon svirle that Shmuel holds like Reb Shimon? Ramar Shmuel, you can't say Shmuel holds is the lenient view. Shmuel, you're allowed to put out a fire, a coal of if there's a hot metal, right? That's coming from the smith, the blacksmith, a hot piece of metal in the Rosh Hashanah. Someone could get burnt from that. It's dangerous. You're allowed to pour water on it or put it out, cover it with something, put it out. Even though you're extinguishing the coal, but b'shvil shleizuk barabim, it's not a problem because you need to do it so people don't get damaged. And the main point is, we'll see in a second what the main point is, that it's not really a malacha. But not if it's made out of wood. If it's made out of wood, then that would be an issa deraisa. Now, isal kadaita Reb Shimon svirle. If you would hold like Reb Shimon, even if it would be made out of wood, it should be mutter. Because your main point of putting it out is not to put out the fire. The main point is to protect people from getting hurt. Now, what's happening now is, before we give the Gemara's answer, there's two types of of exemptions on Shabbos. One is davar shein miskaven, that you didn't intend to do the malacha. The other one is malacha shein tzricha legufa, where you intended to do the malacha, but your intention in this malacha was not what the malacha is typically for. You intended to put out the fire, but typically, why would you put out a fire of wood? Because you want the charcoal. And what's the benefit of charcoal? Is that you can now cook without smoke. You have to burn the wood till all the smoke goes out, and then it becomes just regular coal, where it's just pure heat. So putting out a fire, according to Reb Shimon, is the malacha of putting out the fire. Why is there malacha? What would they use it for? Because they needed the coal. So they would put out a fire to have coal. So the malacha, the actual malacha, needs to be done with the intention for what the purpose of that malacha is, which is for the coal. But here, you're putting it out in order so someone doesn't get hurt. So it'll be a malacha shein tzrich legufa. According to Reb Shimon, it should be mutter. And comes along Shmuel and says that it's aser if it's wood. It's aser if it's wood. You see that Shmuel does not hold the Reb Shimon. The Gemara says, well, you're going to get into trouble because you just confuse two things. B'davar shein miskaven, when it comes to the laws of davar shein miskaven, savar like Reb Shimon, he actually holds like Reb Shimon. Malacha shein tzrich legufa, savar like Reb Yehuda. Comes to malacha shein tzrich legufa, he's actually machmer. When it comes to davar shein miskaven, he's actually mekel. So it's not a kasha on Shmuel. Amar Rav Huna, when it says Nesachim, when it comes to the wine or oil that's being poured, shenitmu, if it became tamei, now you can't bring it to the mizbeach. So what you do is isilem maracha. You make an independent fire with wood on the floor of the azara, bifnei atzman, on its own. B'sarfin sham, you just burn it over there because it had to be burnt, but you can't put it on the mizbeach, so you just burn it on the floor with its own fire. Shemshenema, it says in the pasuk that b'kodesh b'eish tisarif. Actually, the pasuk says that kol chatas sheyuved midam aloy almei l'chap b'kodesh b'eish tisarif. Any chatas that the blood was brought into the sanctuary in the holies, you should be burnt with fire. It meant that it wasn't eaten, right? It was burnt. But the Gemara learns from that anything that became pasul because of kodesh, which means it became tamei, gets burnt in fire inside the azara. Tanya Nami Hachi was also done in the Brisa. Adam v'Hashem v'Amenachas v'Nesachim shenit v'Islam marachim p'niatzav v'Sarfan. That the Brisa says that any blood or oil or mincha nesachim that became tamei, you burn it on its own. Amalei Shmuel or Rav Chana Bagdasa. Shmuel says to Rav Chana from Baghdad, Aisli be'asara, bring to me 10 people. Ve'emalach kamayo, I wanted to say this in front of them, so that everyone should know. Nesachim shenitmu, that nesachim that become tamei, the things that are poured, which is the wine and the oil. Islam marach v'niatzim v'sarfan. You make its own fire and you burn it. Adran lach kol atader. And we're up to the new parak. Let's leave it here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay.
Melech Chanukah.
Thank you. You too.